I had been living for the longest time like I was already dead. Like there was no reason to be here. Like this world was on a one-way ticket to hell, to complete destruction. I was okay with dying, and in fact, I wanted to die. Every single day, I just waited for something to happen to me. I didn't want to end my own life because I was afraid of the pain that I would cause. But I didn't want to die. But then, something within me changed. I had the most terrifying realization that I'm going to die someday, and I took it seriously. And for once in my entire existence, I realized how horrible death truly is. It is the worst part of life. Pain and suffering are not the worst. For the longest time, pain and suffering had paralyzed me, had confined me in a black box of nothingness where there was no life outside and there was no reason for existence. And it would have been better to never have been born at all. All of that went away when I realized how horrible death is. Death is worse than any of that. And then I realized I have a privilege to exist. I've been given the privilege of consciousness. And yes, it is a double-edged blade. If you don't use your consciousness, it will use you and it will destroy you. But that's when I realized that I can learn to use my consciousness. My brain is not my enemy. It's almost like a child that is untrained. A child that has so much potential and so much power within them, but they don't know how to use it. And so they just end up destroying things, because you have to direct things. You need discipline and you need control. Otherwise, you have destruction and disorder. And that seems to be a natural law in this universe. So whatever life is, it must be a way of ordering the disorder in this existence. And for once, I realized I didn't have a name for this feeling, but that I was going to die, and someday I wouldn't be here. And someday, the beautiful things that give my life meaning would disappear with me. I don't know what'll happen after death, but the most terrifying possibility is that there's nothingness after death, like if you had never been born. Except you were born, so what is going to happen to me when I die? What happens to all of us when we die? Where do we go? Do we just disappear? What happens to our consciousness? Was it all an illusion inside the body? Am I asking the right questions? Of course not. These aren't the right questions, because these are not the questions that matter. What matters in life is what is real. And what's real is that someday we're all going to die. And none of us has a clue of what'll happen when we die. And then I finally had a name for this feeling, and others have felt it too. Death anxiety. Could you imagine living and being afraid that you'll die? It's not necessarily that you're afraid that you'll die. It's more of what you'll lose when you're dead. Maybe you have a lot of unlived life inside of you. That's something that Jordan Peterson said. And I guess that's how he copes with the tragedy of life. If you have a lot of unlived life inside of you, it's going to be a tragedy if that comes to a stop and you are not able to live that. That would truly be the most awful thing. But I think far worse than that is dying a slow death, a slow, painful death, and realizing that when you had the time and when you had the opportunities, you didn't take them. And that's the worst regret. That's the worst pain. I think there's nothing deeper. No knife can cut deeper than the pain of regret. It's perhaps like the spiritual equivalent of being tortured. I can't imagine a worse death than being regretful of the life you lived. And so, slowly but surely, I'm starting to wake up. I'm starting to wake up from my slumber because I've been depressed and I've been anxious and I've been wanting to kill myself for so long. I haven't done it. I have not done it because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what I'll lose. I'm afraid of what I don't know. I don't want to leave this world without having done everything that I know I was created to do, or whatever. Even if there is no God, I want to do these things because I feel I have a responsibility. Not just to you, but to myself as well. It gives me a reason to exist. It gives my entire body a reason to wake up. Because otherwise, if there is no reason, well then suffering is all that exists in life. And suffering without reason, in that case, death doesn't seem so bad. If you knew that all your life, the rest of your life that you had to live would just be suffering, there's no point of sticking around. I know. Like if you have a chronic illness that gets in the way of everything, and nobody seems to understand and nobody can help, I think dying would be worse. Somehow, because death is the obliteration of possibility, and all that life is possibility. And there's so much we don't understand, and there's so much we don't know. And how can you be for sure that there's never going to happen a miracle? How can you be for sure? We don't know. So many strange things have happened to human beings. Like I remember this one person got struck by lightning 4 times. There's no way he survived. Although I'm pretty sure in his story, I think he did survive. I don't know. But just strange anomalies like that, things that we can't explain. And when someone takes psychedelics, they see things in life that you can't see with normal eyes. And they meet characters, and they meet people, and they meet religious spiritual figures, and they travel celestial bodies, and there's a lot of things about reality that we don't understand. And the worst part is, the one thing that can help us usually sabotages us, which is our consciousness. Consciousness is like a bridge. Either you burn the bridge or you build it. You build it with a strong structure like an architect. But we can't do it alone. Everybody knows that you can't build a bridge on your own. Even if you have all the right tools and all the right ideas. I always say it, but this game was meant to be played with others. And that's why I make these recordings. Hopefully someone out there is inspired to take action and not to end their life and not to end the lives of others. And instead use their consciousness to slowly build back to life, because human beings at our default state, we want to live. Look at a child. You didn't want to end your life when you were a child, or at least I didn't. But you did want to end your life when you were a child. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine the pain you must have been through. I'm so sorry. But even then, death would be worse. Because even if you go through trauma, even if your parents fuck you up psychologically, you always have an opportunity to rebuild even stronger than if you would have never gone through the trauma. Just look at the stories of the people who inspire you the most. And if you don't have anyone like that, let me share with you the stories of people who have inspired me the most. Like burn victims. I remember this guy, he got completely burned. 4th degree burns, dude. And this other woman, she got attacked. She had an acid attack. And in the hospital, she was like, kill me. She wrote a note to one of the nurses that said, kill me. Because she was in such horrible, agonizing pain. But all of them were able to rebuild their lives, and they were able to share something so powerful through their lives. Like, I would have never paid attention to what they had to say if they had never gone through horrific things in their life. Like I said, there is something in this universe, a God or an ultimate order, that makes a story, and we don't understand the story. We don't understand. We can't change the rules. We can't change the cosmos. All that we can do is believe and move forward. And looking at stories like that, I realize that's the only answer. You have to keep living. There is no other way. There is no other answer. We have to follow through to the end. Find the answers to our questions to the end. And I asked myself, how are human beings able to do such evil acts? And I realized the answer is because psychologically, they are disturbed. Psychologically, they are unwell. And I was in that place. Did you know? I was in that place. I started to ask the wrong questions. My reality has disintegrated, and parts of me have died. But the crazy thing is that you can die plenty of times when you're living. Meaning you can be reborn, you can be changed. Versions of you can die, and you can integrate. But once you have a physical death, it's over. It's over forever. You can't bring the person back. That's what makes death such a tragedy. But if you think about it, euthanasia exists as a last resort. When there is nothing you can do for the person or nothing you can do for the animal, they euthanize because you ran out of options. But while you're alive, how can you be so sure that you've ran out of options while you're alive? Have you really tried everything? I believe I don't have the right to give up until I've tried everything. And I haven't tried everything. And it would be a crime. It would be the same as hurting others. It would be the same as murder if I were to do it to myself, because that's all that suicide is in the end. So that's my answer to the existential crisis of meaninglessness. Is you're looking at the wrong scope of reality. You're asking the wrong questions, and your consciousness is being used against you. So whoever listens to this in the future, I want you to know that we are not alone, that this is not the real world. This world is not our home. This is not where we came from. We will return to dust, but we're more than dust. We're more than ashes. I want you to know that I've felt the weight of God. Or I've felt some contact with God. Similar to when Carl Jung said that he doesn't need to believe in God. He knows. I feel the same now. All the things that I've been through in my life, I realize now there is something far greater than we could ever understand. And I want you to feel it. I want you to believe it. Because that's what saved my life.